Say the Congress isn't doing much, but Republicans have just passed, and President Trump is expected to sign, a bill that repeals recently crafted regulations that barred Internet service providers from selling their clients' browser history to other companies. Quite a few people are very upset about this, suggesting that everybody's porn habits will become a matter of public record. On the other hand, the law simply reverts to the status quo of last year and didn't actually go into effect. So has anything really changed? Robert McDowell is a former FCC commissioner and supports the move. Nuala O'Connor is president and CEO of the Center for Democracy and Technology and is appalled by it. They both join us now. First to you, Mr. McDowell, to critics who say, well, you couldn't get Obamacare repealed, and the first major thing you do is make it legal for Internet service providers to sell my browser history commercially? Like, how is that on your priority list? What is that?
Well, first of all, that's up to Congress. But first of all, thanks so much for having me. Congrats on your show and all your success.
Thanks.
I'm talking to you from Anchorage, Alaska, at the Faulkner's house right before a great salmon dinner. But anyway, on our way to that dinner, it does revert back to the old law. You have to keep in mind that the FCC acted in February of 2016 to classify Internet service providers as phone companies under something called Title II of the Communications Act 1934. And from that time until last October, the world didn't end in privacy, right? So there are other laws already on the books, both federal and state, that regulators and consumer advocates have in their quiver of legal arrows to launch Internet service providers who might misbehave. But all the major Internet service providers have already come out with standards of conduct. They all have terms of service. If they were to violate those terms of service or contracts, there would be massive class action lawsuits. The FCC and the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, have come out with a joint statement back on March 1st saying they would vigilantly protect consumer privacy in this realm. So there's a lot going on here. It's very complex. It's not
I know that it is complex, but it does get to some basic human fears about what others are seeing without our knowledge. But I think Mr. McDowell makes a couple interesting points. One, there's pretty effective self-policing already in place, and two, this is the status quo. I mean, this never even went into effect. Nothing has changed. So why are we so spun up about this?
Well, the result of this week's action means that there's really no cop on the beat, as it refers to Internet service providers, which are the companies that allow all of the Internet access into your house. And what that means for the world we're living in today is not just your Internet surfing habits, your television watching habits, your telephone calls, everything that happens on or in the Internet world, in your home, in the privacy of your own home with your family, your kids, your dogs. That's all going to be known by one company. That's a little different than the other Internet companies that we've been talking about. And we're obviously concerned about your privacy and your data being used and misused. It's not just all the data that's being collected about you, it's all the decisions that are going to be made about you based on that data, both by that company and what they share and sell with other companies and with future holders of that information, and limiting your worldview and limiting what you see online and what information you get, what opportunities for advancement you get in your life. So there's some serious repercussions.
Well, you can keep yourself up at night worrying about that. So, Robert McDowell, here's what bothers me, is you don't have a choice of Internet service providers. They negotiate with the town you live in to provide this to you. Mostly you don't really have a choice. And again, they're under government contract. Why is it bad to say to them, for the government to say to them, no, you can't misuse the private data that you collect?
Well, first of all, you do have a choice of Internet service providers. You have mobile broadband being the fastest growing segment of the Internet market. So you do have a choice, and it covers a lot of ISPs. But you had two standards when the Federal Communications Commission acted last October, created two standards. One for Internet service providers, and then there's another standard by the Federal Trade Commission for the rest of the world, which became confusing to consumers. Tucker, you're very intelligent, you're well-read. You don't know what companies have on you, which companies have what data on you, and nor do I. And so what you have the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Communications Commission chairman saying right now is they want one standard to protect consumer privacy. And again, from February of 2016 or 2015 until October of 2016, the world did not end in terms of privacy, and you had what we have today after the CRA. So they are going to march forward. They're going to come up with harmonized rules to protect consumers. And the world really is not going to end from a privacy perspective. It's confusing, but if an Internet service provider were to start to breach their agreements and breach federal and state law, there'll be an avalanche of lawsuits from trial lawyers and others, as well as government agencies, state attorneys general, the Attorney General of the United States, for all we know.
Those will be the only suits I support, I have to say. So Nuala, quickly, the concern about Internet service providers having too much power, I understand. But people seem way less concerned about, say, Google, which seems to run the world, and people presume their decency. And why should we presume their decency? And why aren't we paying closer attention to what they're doing with the information they gather?
Well, I think the real difference is an internet service provider knows where you live, who you are, your intimate details, and your credit card number because you have to pay your bill every month,
right.
and maybe your social security number. As we were talking
Google
about,
doesn't have that info. I think
not
they
necessarily.
Do.
I mean, you can do anonymous searching online on search engines. You can choose which social media sites you go on. With your internet service provider, you really don't have a choice today. In today's world, and there's so much, Rob and I agree on harmonization and fairness to companies and to consumers. But in the world we live in today, most Americans have a choice of exactly one company to provide their internet service. So they don't have the bargaining power.
Can we trust anonymous searching? I mean, is there a place you can go that actually protects your privacy?
Sure, absolutely. And at CDT, come to cdt.org and learn about all the VPNs and all the great services you can use. There's always Tor. But I don't want to burden the consumers by having to really do that search.
No, I think it's worth being burdened. And by the way, put some tape over the camera on your iPad.
Absolutely.
Robert, just kidding.